You're listening to the Breakaway Breakdown podcast, where we bring you interviews with some of the top ropers in the country, news about what's going on in the fastest sport on dirt, training tips for you and your horses, and so much more. I'm your host, Casey Allen. Let's jump in. You guys, it is the final countdown. We are less than 3 weeks away from the national finals of breakaway roping in Las Vegas. And by the way, Breakaway Roping Journal will be on the scene, keeping up with all the action if you cannot make it out in person. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about one of the cowgirls who will be in attendance at her second NFBR in just a few weeks. On top of it, at the time I spoke to her, she had just come off of clinching another Prairie Circuit championship for the year end. She's also a college national finals rodeo champion, and she was a reserve champion at the American a few years ago. I'm talking about Taylor Munsell. I think you guys are really going to love Taylor's perspective on life. She has such a great mental attitude, and she seems to have fun everywhere she goes, and I've always really loved that about her as a competitor. So, we are going to jump right in, and I am going to tell you guys more about fastback ropes at the commercial break, because they are the reason this episode is possible today. Let's jump right in.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Oh, we're surviving.
Yeah.
Cold.
It is kind of chilly out.
Yeah, I think it's barely above freezing here.
Jeez. Did you guys get all that rain this weekend?
Not. I got rained on at Duncan during the circuit finals. It poured on us. But here at Alva, we didn't actually get hardly any of the rain.
I gotcha. So what are you up to? Are you just taking a little break now, training some horses? What's been going on?
Yes, not much of a break, but going to the vet a lot lately. Getting horses, trying to get everything sound, and riding a bunch of young horses, trying to get a bunch of horses that got left home rode down and going again.
I gotcha. So let's backtrack and talk about kind of your year, because you had a stellar season, but you were really quiet about it, I felt like. You were just consistent everywhere.
Yeah, I had a really good year that wasn't really honestly that good. I was struggling with horses. My bay horse was hurt for a lot of it, and I barely got to bring him out. And then my sorrel horse, we had him in the vet 3 different times, and I was mounting out on other people's horses and ended up only having my yellow horse there at the end. And honestly, I didn't really rope super great, but I really capitalized at a lot of the big 2 and 3 head rodeos, which is really where you need to.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But yeah, it was it definitely wasn't flashy, but I was really happy with how it turned out with everything else I had going on.
Heck yeah. So did you start right when the season rolled over last year, or did you take a little bit of a break before the finals last year?
I took a break. I did not enter anything other than circuit finals, and then I actually missed the books on Fort Worth last year because it was the same day. Our books are only one day in the breakaway instead of a week for the big rodeos like the guys are, and it was the day that right after the finals, my sorrel horse, he come up 3-legged, couldn't walk when I rode at the finals, and I was gone, so somebody else had him at the vet, and I was on the phone with vets, and they were possible career ending and all this stuff, and I completely missed the books on Fort Worth last year, so I had a really late start on the year compared to everybody else. My first rodeos back were Houston, or San Antonio and Houston.
Jeez. So what did you do mentally to kind of come from behind, and especially with the horse problems? I feel like your mental game had to be spot on to get through all that.
Yeah, it's stressful. I just kind of stayed bared down with, I got 3 of them, and they're all good enough to win on. So tried to just stay bared down and not think about the fact that, I would rather be riding this horse here and just be thankful I had a horse to ride there. And I was lucky at San Antonio and some of those rodeos. I borrowed a horse that was really good from Hagen Hauk. He let me ride a mare of his that was really good when all three of mine got hurt during those. So I was lucky, and I just tried not to let myself get down on it and just kind of keep my head down. And I know there's a lot of rodeos left and a lot of year left.
So who'd you haul with this year, Taylor?
Samantha Fulton.
Okay, all right. So both in the rig are going to the finals. I feel like she had a quiet year also.
Yes, she had a really good year at the beginning, and she had a really good year all year. She roped good. It was just kind of like she was roping good, she was winning money, and everybody else was also doing the same thing.
Yeah, so you've been out there is this your third NFBR, or did you skip the first year?
I skipped the first year. This is my second.
Okay. So talk about the difference in what it's like out there for you guys, even just from last year to this year.
We talked about this a lot, like rodeo this summer. It's changing so fast. And I feel like I come in at a really good point because I kind of just started Breakaway and went to a few of the big rope-ins for a couple of years, and then they added it to ProRodeo. So I kind of was just coming in and adapting already to it, where it's really changed because a lot of these people, it's always been kind of like rope smart, use your head, win money. And anymore at these pro rodeos, with the amount of girls, the amount of talent, and the people that are coming back to the event and taking it more serious now, it's kind of a knife fight everywhere you go. There's not really much just being smart anymore. I mean, you got to max the barrier out, make realistic runs every time, and your mental game has to be great, because when you're doing that, you're going to miss a lot of calves and break a lot of barriers.
Yeah. And you talked about building up that string of horses, and I feel like you've had to work really hard to get good horses under you and kind of keep them going. So just talk about how you've, I guess, put that string together and how you've gotten your roping to where you're so adaptable you can jump on different horses.
Yes. Yeah, horsepower is crazy important now in the Breakaway. It's changed so much. You just have to have horses you can rely on so much, especially once we get out there on the road, because they get so many runs back to back without any practice in between. And with us, we're generally, we don't have to set the horse up for the run, so we sacrifice the horse for the run. So we're basically doing all things wrong and expecting them to still work correct to win. But yeah, I'm lucky to have the horses I have. Feel like I have a really good set for every setup and every time of year. I got Monster, which is the older bay that I've won everything on, when he was 2, and I rode him for like 7 years before I ever hauled him. That's the one I won second on at the American stuff. And then Ray, the yellow horse, actually raised, and he's a year younger than Monster. So those two came up about the same time, and luckily Breakaway wasn't big, so I didn't rush them at all. And I've got those two where I can pretty much, I know them inside and out and on every setup and how to use them. And then it was perfect timing. Colonel, the star horse, is actually sent to me to ride and sell. And after I rode him for a few months, I knew he was what I needed. He was going to be the staple piece in my career. And I ended up getting him bought.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, they're really important. I know I got 3 horses I can rely on, and that helps a bunch.
So what was it about Monster that stuck out to you so long ago?
I don't know. My dad bought him, and he actually was led through a sell ring, and nobody bid on him because he was really skinny. And my dad saw his papers, and they weren't bad, so he bought him for $200, and he told me, he's like, "You're going to want this horse." And I said, "Absolutely not," after I looked at him. And then he got fat enough to ride, and I was the only one small enough to ride him because he was so little, and I was 13 at the time. So I got on him, and the only thing he knew how to do was lope and stop super hard. So I ended up buying him for my dad. And I just always knew he was going to be good. And then when I went to college, I had a gray horse that was not very good, but Monster was really green. And I rode them both at a jackpot, and Shelby Weeder, Rose now, was there, and she was like, I don't care what you do, get rid of that gray horse and ride that bay horse because he's going to be good. He's going to be what you need. And from that day on, I sent the gray horse home, never rode her again, and only rode the bay, and things just worked out.
I love that. That's taking advice to heart right there.
Yeah. It was pretty dedicated to it. I knew he was going to be better than anything I'd ever rode. I just didn't know what I was doing at the time because I wasn't a breakaway roper until I went to college.
Really?
Yeah, I just team roped, and then I always handled the rope good enough that I entered the breakaway at like high school rodeos and stuff.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was definitely not something I ever focused on. And when I went to college, Stockton Graves, my coach was like, so you know I'm recruiting you to be a breakaway roper because there's no money in all-girl team roping.
That's insane. So what did that adjustment period look like, transitioning into breakaway?
A lot, because I had the reconstructive shoulder surgery at the same time.
That casual detail.
Yeah, so like a week before I graduated high school, I had thoracic outlet, and they went in, they took out like my top rib, took out a bunch of pec muscle that was torn up, did rotator cuff surgery and all that, and it's like a full year recovery, like 6 months before you use it, and like a year to fully recover, and then a lot of time, like you have to take a lot of care of it, and that was from heading. So they also were like, don't head, stick with the, like, when I started to come back, they're like, you can break away because that swing's a little different and not so hard on you. So they let me break away before they let me head. Okay. There was a lot. I was relearning how to swing a rope and training a horse and learning to break away and everything all at the same time.
Gosh. Are you right-handed also? Like, were you trying to start class and take notes?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot. It worked out. I mean, it was definitely for the best because it was kind of a career-ending thing to not, if I had it and didn't fix it. So, I mean, it definitely worked out for the best. But there was a lot of back and forth because it was like, you got to take care of your shoulder. But also, I was trying to figure stuff out, so all I wanted to do was run calves. So, every time I ran too many calves, I would hurt super bad, couldn't use my arm, and it took me a while to figure out the balance of how to take care of my shoulder and practice to the best for myself and my horse.
Is that something that still comes up that you have to take care of?
Yes. My shoulder is constant caretaking. Like, I work out a bunch. I have all kinds of gadgets that I use on the road, like I get AcuPost and MyoPost. I have to stay up at the chiropractor because they rerouted muscles in the front of my shoulder, so everything's kind of tight and pulls forward and pulls out of place. To get massages, to keep everything worked out. I go to the gym a bunch on the road. My hauling partner, Sam, and then her sister at the end of the year, too, was hauling with us. And they got really good about going with me, which made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I bet that driving's brutal.
Yeah, the driving is it's a different type on it, but it's very hard on it. And I can really tell, like, the end of the year whenever we're super busy and I don't have time to take as good a care of it. You can really tell.
Jeez.
But my winters are spent pretty much taking care of my body so that during the summer I can wear it out and then start over again.
I mean, girl, I knew you were gritty, but you're like a dang bulldogger or something.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Fastback Ropes. Fastback Ropes was created in 1995 with a single mission in mind, to build the best rope on the market. That will always be their number one goal, according to Fastback Ropes. They believe it's important to focus on building the best product possible and treat customers with the respect that they deserve. Now, besides being a great company, they feature 2 ropes that I think you breakaway ropers are going to like. The first is the Edge, a 4-strand calf rope. It's made of texturized poly. It's a tough and durable rope that stands up in all conditions and outlasts the competition. The other rope that they've come up with is exclusively for breakaway ropers. unlike the Edge, which was offered to calf ropers previously. It's called the Athena. And besides being pink and having a purple dyed core, which is awesome, the poly core provides enhanced tip weight and durability. It's a tough and durable rope that stands up in all conditions and gives a snappy finish and close. Make sure to check out fastbackropes.com for more information and to get your ropes. Okay, so how... I need to like dissect your brain now. Because I was going to ask how you went from team roping to when I first met you and knew you in college and you kicked everybody's butts in the breakaway. So what did your schedule look like? What were you mentally like fighting through to go from the injury, team roping, to kind of whooping up on everybody in the breakaway?
Well, it was a long process. The first year was terrible, actually. So that first year I held Monster at the college rodeos. I rode him at 8 of 10 rodeos. I rode that gray at the other 2 right in the middle. And it was really sucky for me because I broke the barrier at the first 7 rodeos I rode him at, and I made the short round on the gray the two rodeos I rode her at. So it was pretty disheartening until finally I had already put my mind to it. I was going to ride him. And at the very last college rodeo that year, I think I made the short round, won the short round, and second the average. And then it just clicked. And then I was like, okay, I kind of like this. And then after that first year was kind of spent fighting, trying to figure out what worked best to take care of my shoulder. And then the next year I started working out with one of the football trainers here to help me like make a workout that helped me build muscle in my back and stuff without hurting my shoulder and everything. And then I stopped practicing so much and started kind of practicing with a mindset instead of just numbly practicing and running as many calves as I could. I started like going into practice with a game plan on each horse. And as soon as I executed it, which is now it's usually in 2 to 4 or 5 calves, and then quitting there. But it was a lot because a college kid at that age and figuring stuff out, all I wanted to do was run millions of calves.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, 18, 19 years old, that's a hard adjustment life period anyway, on top of changing events and being injured.
Yeah. And Stockton was really good. He helped me a bunch, and he was really my style of coaching, just very dry and like straight to the point. And he could just tell me when, like, hey, honest to gosh, hey, you're being an idiot. Pull your head out. And like that stuff really would, like, he never really helped me a whole bunch with the like actual roping part of it, but he could. And there was a couple times, and you knew when he talked to you that it was good advice and serious. But he kind of helped me a lot with staying on course. He wouldn't let you spiral out.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot too, like being able to take constructive criticism, like you said, from somebody that doesn't do your event mainly is still pretty important at those deals.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, you can't knock him. He's one of the best in the world, so I knew he had more insight on how this works than I did.
Oh.
And I still see it a lot. I've just figured out what works for me, and I know it wouldn't necessarily work for everybody, but I feel like all of us out here rodeo, we get in a slump and we pretty much do the opposite of what we need. We get to running a million calves and tuning horses and everything else. And a lot of the time it's just kind of you just need to step back and look at the big picture. We're lucky to be doing what we're doing.
Heck yeah. So, going together this summer, what was the burden like financially for you guys this year? I mean, I know there was a lot more money on the table and you won a lot more, but were you putting more out in expenses this year compared to last year?
Yes, a lot more. Fuel was significantly higher. Hay was significantly higher. I mean, basically the price of everything went up quite a bit. we did, luckily, one good this year, and things didn't really get tight until at the end when we were going to rodeos, just sitting for a week. But luckily, we're pretty good. Anna, Sam's little sister, hauled with us the last 6 weeks of the summer, so we were splitting fuel 3 ways, which helped a bunch. Mm-hmm. And we are pretty good. We like to cook out a lot, and we eat a lot of sandwiches. So we don't go out to eat a lot.
Switch to peanut butter and jelly the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what... We don't really stop and spend money. We're pretty good. We got a grill, and we cook, and when we don't want to cook, we eat sandwiches.
So, okay, we're going back, second NFBR this year. What did you learn from last year's NFBR? And what are you kind of focusing on with your roping or your mental game to get ready for this year's finals?
Last year, it was a mental battle for me because last year, like 2 weeks before I left for the finals is when I found out Monster had a torn suspensory and wasn't going to get a go, which is the bay. Mm-hmm. And that's the one I planned on riding. And the sorrel horse Colonel's the one I ended up riding. But he was still pretty green at the time. Kind of just got thrown to the wolves last year because I had sent Monster home. And he worked outstanding out there. But it was just a battle of, I was fretting about not having the horse I wanted to ride there. And like I said, luckily I have 3 that I can get by. But once I got out there and got to the finals and actually we started it, it kind of all went away for me because once I get to places like that, it's like, you made it. You did the hard part. Now just go have fun. Do your thing. You roped good enough. Your horses are good enough and you belong there. So it's almost less stressful for me whenever I get to that point. This year we're going in opposite because I wanted to ride Colonel and he's hurt this year, so I'm riding Monster.
Kind of did a flip-flop there.
Yeah, I know. Last year I wanted to ride Monster because I had so much confidence on 10 head, but then Colonel did so good on 10 head. Now going in this year, I'm like, yeah, I know Colonel does good on 10 head. I wish I had him. But like I said, we always find something to stress and worry about, so I try just not to focus on it too much because I know once I get there, it's all going to work out.
Heck yeah. So, you happened to win that little Prairie Circuit last weekend, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, I wanted to talk about how you balanced the circuit rodeos and making the finals. Or was it a balance? Were you just going?
Yes, it was a balance. I actually had to fly home to get my rodeo count. It was not super bad for me because luckily I won good at the circuit rodeos I was going to, so I just had to worry about getting my count in, and it wasn't bad at all. I think after the California rodeos, I left my horse with Sam, my home partner. They have a place in Arizona. I left him in Arizona with them. I just flew home for like Ada, and then I had my yellow horse at home, so I rode him, and then I flew back out there to meet her. And I think I flew home from, right before Pendleton, I flew home for Claremore. My yellow horse was at Pendleton. I had my bay horse at home. So I had a lot of help, like my family obviously picking me up from the airport and helping me get to the rodeos and take care of my horses and keep them in shape that were at home. But yeah, you definitely can't do it on your own, but I was lucky this year. I didn't have to stress too much about it.
Mm-hmm. And then I didn't look at what kind of leads you had or where you were at going into circuit finals. Were you sitting number 1 or did you win enough there to get it done?
No, I won enough there. I went in second by 1,700, I believe.
It's a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, and then I missed my first one. We actually the top 4 girls all missed their first ones. So then it was not what I was planning on doing, but then it kind of helped me with my mindset after that because then I could just black out and I know it's just go for the go rounds because I knew I needed to win enough money to catch her, and I knew that it was Addie Well, and I knew she was also going to win some money.
Mm-hmm.
She ropes good, and that is also a good kind of mindset for her, is to go at the rounds rather than the average. I ended up winning the second, third rounds, and then enough people didn't do good in the average that I actually ended up still winning third in the average.
That's awesome, though. Talk about going for the go rounds. Just go ahead and win them both.
Yeah. I drew really, really good calves. I will say that. I drew Christy Broderick's calf in the first round was pretty soft, and I drew him in the second round. And she's like, man, he's a great one if you know him. And I was like, yeah, I wanted him. And then after I rounded him that night, I won the round. She's like, she had drew another soft one that she broke the barrier on. She's like, man, why don't you just go ahead and draw my calf again tomorrow night? And I said, I'm saying it now. I'm drawing your calf again tomorrow night. And sure enough, I did. So.
That's awesome. Christy's like the circuit director also, right? I noticed she organizes a lot.
Yes, she does a whole bunch for us. She's like we don't technically have circuit directors, but our spokesperson for the Breakaway that kind of relays all the information between the WPRA board and the Breakaway ropers and everything else. I can't even imagine.
Did you drink your coffee this morning, Taylor?
I did.
Okay. I love talking to you guys in the mornings because, like, you're still kind of half awake, like...
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not fully awake yet.
That's okay. That's when you're the most honest. No.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. So, okay, getting ready for Vegas. Are you going to go to anything on the way out there? Try to hit anything else while you're there? Are you just going to go for the finals? Like, what's that trip going to look like for you guys?
Yes, we're going to, I think the game plan is me and Sam are going to go pretty early and stay at their place in Arizona for a little while and let horses chill and kind of rest in some big pins, and we can still rope. And then go on, it's only like 4 hours or something on to Vegas from there. So then we'll go straight out there to the finals. And, yes, I've entered, I'll enter every other roping out there. There's a bunch of ropings that pay good, and they run the finals where we can go to all of them, so.
Mm-hmm. Are you team roping out there, or are you just breakaway?
Just breakaway roping. I team roped for the first time yesterday since January.
It's fine. You muscle memory, right?
Yeah. It actually went really well.
Heck yeah.
Makes me want to start doing it again more consistently. But.
Do any of your breakaway horses head, or do you have a different one at home?
No, I have a head horse at home. My yellow horse is actually a head horse, but since he's been getting hauled so much in the breakaway, I don't make him do that anymore. But I have a good head horse at home.
Heck yeah. Well, anything else, Taylor? Is like there anything that you would want to tell the girls at home that might be fighting with injuries or might be fighting with wondering if they're good enough to make it out there? Like, what would you tell those girls?
Well, for anybody fighting with injuries, the biggest thing for me is that whatever the, diagnosis is from the doctor, however they tell you your recovery is going to go, that's worst case scenario, not best case scenario. So you can be the best case scenario on it, as long as you do the work and take care of your body and stuff, and you can come back from those injuries a lot faster and a lot better than what you think you can. And if you're struggling on the road, my advice would be to go back and work on your mentality of it. And then when you go to the practice pen, pick one thing you're going to work on that day and make sure you execute that one thing and then be done. And then the next day, try to improve on something else. And don't try to fix everything at once, because that never does anything. It just overfloods your brain and makes for a bad practice.
Heck yeah. And then the question I got to ask everybody that comes on, what is the best piece of advice, whether it's roping or life or whatever, best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think the best piece of advice, which was my one for the back number deal last year, and it's just, it is what it is. Let's enter another one. Because that's really my mentality. I mean, if you really love this sport and you love it even during the lows, you just love it a little less. But, I mean, I'm the queen of making myself look like a fool that's never entered before, and then turning around and doing good, or having a stellar weekend and then the next weekend looking like I've never swung a rope before. But it happens, and I just kind of embrace that because I know everybody goes through that. So if I take it with grace, I want everybody else to kind of see like, oh, hey, it happens to them too, and they don't get down or throw a fit. I mean, it is what it is. We get enter another one. So
I feel like that's your personality motto.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
If you guys want to hear more from Taylor, we are going to be posting some videos of her on breakawayroping.com within the next couple weeks for you guys to watch, where she is practicing to get ready for the NFBR at the one and only Larry D. Guy's house. We also have a roundtable in the works where we have 5 of the NFBR qualifiers in one room talking about getting ready for the NFBR, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. That's all I've got for today, but be sure to check out fastbackropes.com if you're in the market for a new rope, and check out the Edge and the Athena. And as always, be keeping up with the Breakaway Roping Journal online and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok so you guys can stay in the loop about all things Vegas and all things leading up to Vegas. Until next time, we'll see you guys.